All right, so we're diving into ancient China today,
All right.
getting into the life of Lü Zi, China's first empress.
Yeah.
And you've been doing some digging, and you've got this super interesting source
Yeah.
offering a fresh take on her story.
Right.
I'm really excited to unpack some of these key insights from this material with you and see why she's so much more than just this, this ruthless figure.
Right. Yeah. And I think one of the things that makes her so fascinating is her path to power wasn't really a straight line.
Yeah.
She wasn't born into royalty.
Right.
She wasn't groomed for leadership from the start.
Right.
Her story actually begins in a pretty unexpected way, as a hostage.
A hostage. Wow. That's really surprising. So, I mean, while her husband Liu Bang was off fighting to become the emperor,
Yeah.
she's spending years as a political pawn,
That's
separated from all the action.
That's right. Yeah.
That must have been a really difficult experience.
Oh, absolutely. And I think that's why her eventual rise to power is so remarkable. You know, it really speaks to her resilience
Yeah.
and her ability to not only survive, but thrive
Yeah.
in such a high-stakes environment.
It's like this time away almost gave her like a unique perspective, a chance to like observe and analyze the players from a distance.
Exactly. And I think it really probably honed her strategic thinking.
Yeah.
She couldn't rely on brute force or direct intervention. So she really had to learn how to navigate these really complex situations.
Oh, right.
Anticipate her opponent's moves.
Yeah.
And really leverage her limited resources to her advantage.
Well, and the source definitely doesn't shy away from describing some of those strategic moves that she made later on, particularly against her rivals. I mean, we're talking executions, eliminating entire families. Pretty intense stuff.
Yeah, I think it's important that we acknowledge these actions, but I think it's equally important to understand them within the context of the time.
Right.
This is a period of really intense power struggles,
Of course.
right after the unification of China.
Yeah.
I mean, the Han Dynasty was still very young, and there were threats to its stability everywhere.
Yeah.
And so while her actions might seem brutal to us now, they were part of a larger strategy to consolidate power and ensure the survival of the dynasty that she was building. You know?
She was built. It's almost like she understood that power, especially in this newly unified empire, was as much about eliminating threats as it was about building alliances.
Absolutely.
And fostering loyalty.
I think you're exactly right. And I think a good example of that is what happened with the abduction of the Marquis of Lü, otherwise known as Zhang Liang.
Right.
This brilliant strategist who had been instrumental in Liu Bang's rise to power.
Yeah.
He was initially hesitant to support Lü Zi's son as the heir to the throne.
So what'd she do? She forced him.
She did. She essentially kidnapped him.
Wow.
And made him choose a side.
Yeah. So that's
a bold move.
That is a bold move.
You know, and I think it really shows her political savvy. You know, she understood Zhang Ling's value, and she wasn't afraid to use unconventional tactics to secure his support.
This incident really underscores how complex she was.
Yeah.
You know, we see the ruthlessness, but we also see the strategic brilliance.
Well, exactly.
But if we really want to understand Lü Zi's legacy, we have to look beyond these power struggles.
Right.
And we've got to see how she actually governed. And this is where things get really interesting.
It really does, yeah, because I mean, while the source doesn't shy away from some of her, ruthless actions, it also highlights the stability and the prosperity that marked her reign.
Okay.
For example, we learn that she lightened the tax burden on the people.
Oh, wow.
And, gave them some breathing room after years of war.
Yeah.
And she also eased restrictions on merchants.
Interesting.
Which fostered economic growth and encouraged trade.
This all seems to contradict that image of a ruthless tyrant.
It does.
What was she aiming for with these policies?
It's a great question.
Yeah.
And I think it gets to the heart of her pragmatism. Okay. I think she realized that easing the burden on people would actually strengthen her own position.
Right.
A content populace is less likely to rebel, and a thriving economy provides the resources needed to maintain stability.
So it wasn't just about being nice.
No.
It was a calculated strategy to really solidify her authority and ensure the long-term success of the Han Dynasty.
That's exactly right, yeah.
It makes you wonder if her more ruthless actions were, in a way, part of a larger plan to create, the conditions for this peace, prosperity.
It's a really complex question.
Yeah.
And I think the source gives us some intriguing clues.
Okay.
It highlights this period of relative peace during her reign.
Yeah.
Especially in contrast to the turbulent years that preceded it. And this stability allowed the Han Dynasty to consolidate its power and establish itself as a dominant force in the region.
Yeah.
And in fact, this era laid the groundwork for what historians call the Pax Sinica.
Wow.
A 2-century period of peace and prosperity in China.
That's incredible. And this is all happening while she was managing external threats, like the Xiongnu, those powerful nomadic tribes.
Absolutely. The Xiongnu posed a constant challenge to the Han Dynasty. And managing this relationship required a very delicate balance of diplomacy and military strength.
Oh, and speaking of the Xiongnu, there's this amazing anecdote in the source about a letter that Lü Ji received from a Xiongnu chieftain after his wife died.
Yes.
And apparently he proposed that they keep each other company.
I know, right? Talk about awkward.
It was a rather indelicate proposition.
It really was.
To say the least.
Yeah.
It was probably intended as an insult.
Okay.
A way to kind of test her resolve.
Yeah.
And maybe even undermine her authority.
Right.
But her response is, it's really a masterclass in diplomacy.
Bro.
She really diffused the potential for conflict, but at the same time subtly asserting the Han Dynasty's power.
So she basically wrote back, played it cool.
Exactly. She downplayed her suitability as a match.
Yeah.
Using humor and wit to deflect his advances.
Yeah. Without escalating the situation into a military conflict.
That's incredible.
I mean, it shows her capacity for pragmatism.
Yeah.
And her willingness to prioritize the stability of the empire over her personal pride.
Right.
Or the urge for immediate retaliation.
It's a reminder that leadership's multifaceted.
Yeah.
It's not just about brute force or dominance.
Right.
It's also about this strategic thinking, the diplomacy, and the ability to adapt to these unexpected challenges. And it highlights the importance of looking beyond these simple labels like ruthless or benevolent.
Exactly.
And we're evaluating historical figures. I mean, Lü Ji's story is a reminder that even the most powerful individuals, they operate within these complex systems.
Yeah.
And their actions, both positive and negative, have far-reaching consequences that extend far beyond their own lifetime.
That's right.
We've covered a lot of ground already, but there's still so much to uncover about Lü Ji's legacy.
Oh, absolutely.
Let's take a closer look at some of the specific policies and reforms that shaped her reign and really left a lasting impact on the Han Dynasty.
Sounds good. It's interesting how the source contrasts Lü Ji's approach to court officials with some of her successors, even those who were considered to be, more benevolent.
Yeah, I mean, when we think of powerful rulers, especially the ones who consolidated their power through some pretty tough tactics.
Right.
We often picture widespread purges, getting rid of anyone who could even be a potential threat.
Exactly.
But it sounds like Lü Ji was a little bit more selective.
Yeah, she wasn't afraid to use force.
Yeah.
When she deemed it necessary,
right.
But she didn't engage in just wholesale elimination of officials.
So it was more about surgically removing potential obstacles rather than just creating this atmosphere of fear.
Yeah, exactly.
Paranoia.
And the source even cites examples of officials who openly disagreed with Lü Ji, but weren't executed.
Wow.
They might have been demoted or sidelined.
Right.
But their lives and families were spared.
Interesting.
Which is very different from some later emperors who were known for their paranoia and their brutality.
Right.
Towards anyone they perceived as a threat.
Right. Real or imagined.
Yeah, exactly.
It seems like she really understood the importance of keeping that bureaucracy functioning.
Absolutely.
She didn't want to cripple the system that she needed to actually govern.
Yeah, she relied on experienced officials, many of whom had served her husband, Liu Bang.
Yeah.
And she recognized that their loyalty and expertise were crucial for maintaining that stability.
Right.
And ensuring that the empire ran smoothly.
So she understood that just ruthlessly eliminating everyone who was a potential rival could backfire, especially if it meant like dismantling the infrastructure of the government.
Yeah.
And the source also points out that this pragmatic approach extended beyond just her dealings with officials.
Right.
It talks about her efforts to actually improve the lives of ordinary people.
Yeah.
Which, kind of seems like a contradiction when you consider some of those harsher actions.
It's a fascinating paradox.
It is.
Isn't it?
Yeah.
But it really speaks to the complexity of her character.
Yeah.
And really the realities of leadership.
Right.
I mean, the source mentions how she lightened taxes during her reign.
Okay.
Which provided relief for those common people
who
had been through years of war and upheaval.
That must have been a welcome change for a lot of people.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
And it wasn't just about taxes.
Okay.
She also eased those restrictions on merchants.
Okay.
Which allowed for greater economic freedom and encouraged trade.
So these measures, I mean, not only boosted the economy, but they also really improved the lives of everyday people.
Yeah.
It seems like she understood that a prosperous and content populace was really essential for a strong and stable empire.
Yeah, she was a pragmatist at heart.
Yeah.
And she recognized that her own power and the longevity of the dynasty really depended on the well-being of the people.
Yeah.
And she was willing to make concessions and implement policies that might seem at odds with her reputation for ruthlessness.
This reminds me of the story about Sima Qian.
Oh, right.
The historian who wrote, this very text that we're talking about.
Yeah.
He was punished for defending a general who surrendered to the Xiongnu.
Yeah.
So it seems like even someone as respected as Sima Qian wasn't immune to the dangers of court politics.
It's a powerful reminder of how precarious life at court could be.
Yeah.
Even for those in positions of power or influence.
Right. Right.
And it makes Lü Zai's restraint in dealing with those dissenting officials even more remarkable.
Yeah.
I mean, she could have easily followed the path of some of her successors and unleashed a wave of terror.
Right.
But she chose a different path.
Yeah.
One that really prioritized stability and the preservation of that existing power structure.
It's really fascinating to think about how different Chinese history might have been if she had taken that other approach.
Indeed. I mean, her reign, while, not without its shadows, it really laid the foundation for this period of unprecedented peace and prosperity.
Yeah.
A period that would come to define the Han Dynasty as a golden age.
Wow.
In Chinese history.
This deep dive has been full of surprises.
It has.
We started off with this image of a ruthless empress.
Right.
But as we've gone deeper, we've discovered this much more complex figure.
Yeah.
Someone who balanced ruthlessness with pragmatism, ambition, with a deep understanding of how delicate that balance of power can be.
Her story really reminds us that leadership isn't about these simple categories.
Yeah.
It's about navigating these complex situations.
Right.
Making those tough choices.
Right.
And understanding that even the most well-intentioned actions can sometimes have unintended consequences.
And it's a reminder that our understanding of history is always evolving.
Absolutely.
New evidence comes to light and new perspectives are brought to the table. And what initially seems black and white often turns out to be a tapestry of grays.
That's a great way to put it.
This whole deep dive into Lü Zia has really challenged how I think about leadership.
Yeah.
We always focus on those really big personalities.
Right.
The ones who command armies and give these big speeches.
Right.
But what about those leaders who really excel at building systems and creating those conditions for stability and growth, even if their methods aren't always
textbook.
Yeah, textbook.
I think that's a key takeaway from the source. It really pushes us beyond those easy labels of, good or bad, and really makes us think about impact.
Exactly. Like, did their rule create a lasting positive effect? Did it actually benefit not just the elite, but like broader society?
Yeah, absolutely.
It makes me think about that phrase that the source used to describe Lü Zhi.
Yeah.
An above the baseline ruler?
Yes.
What makes a ruler above the baseline?
It's such a good question.
Yeah.
And I think it goes beyond just, measuring economic growth or military victories.
Right. Yeah.
We really have to consider that long-term impact of their decisions.
Yeah.
Did they strengthen the institutions of government? Did they lay the groundwork for future success?
Yeah.
Did their actions have a ripple effect that extended far beyond their own lifetimes?
It's especially interesting when we're talking about Lü Zhi.
Yeah.
Because she's such a, complicated person.
She is.
On the one hand, she's known for her ruthlessness and, consolidating power through some pretty harsh tactics.
Yeah.
But then on the other hand, her reign was marked by stability, economic growth, and even a period of peace with the Xiongnu.
Right. It's almost as if those harsh tactics were all part of this bigger strategy to create those conditions for that stability and growth.
It's kind of disturbing.
It is, yeah.
But it makes us think about that sometimes progress comes at a cost.
It does. It does.
And it challenges us to grapple with the morality of leadership.
Absolutely. It's not always black and white.
Right. And the source even makes this interesting comparison between Lü Zhi and another really powerful woman in Chinese history, Lü Zhi.
Yeah.
She was a force to be reckoned with, ruled in her own right as emperor.
Yes.
What do you think the source is trying to get at by connecting these two?
I think it's a really smart comparison, and I think it speaks to the challenges that women in positions of power often face.
Yeah.
Both of them had to navigate these incredibly treacherous political landscapes.
Yeah.
And they had to overcome obstacles that men in similar positions just didn't face.
It's incredible to think about, and they both left these huge marks on history, like shaping the course of events in these really profound ways. It makes you wonder what they could have accomplished if they hadn't had to operate within such restrictive
exactly.
and honestly hostile environments.
That's a question that I think is really worth pondering.
Yeah.
But I think their stories, despite all of the darkness and the compromises, really offer this powerful testament to human resilience and the enduring impact of those people who dare to challenge the status quo, even when the odds are stacked against them.
Well, we've explored so much today.
We have.
Lü Zhi's rise to power, her approach to governing, her lasting impact on the Han dynasty. We've seen how she really defies those easy categories.
Yeah.
And it makes us really confront the complexity of leadership and those often uncomfortable truths that are beneath the surface of history.
Absolutely.
But before we wrap up, I have one final question for you, our listener.
Okay.
If you could choose just one other female leader from history to compare Lü Zhi to, who would it be? Yeah. And why?
Someone who, like Lü Zhi, defied those easy labels,
Right.
who navigated a really complex and challenging world, and who left behind a legacy that continues to fascinate and inspire us centuries later.
Think about those women who wielded power, who made these tough choices, and who, for better or worse, shaped the course of events. What can their stories teach us about leadership?
Right.
About the complexities of power and about the enduring impact of those who dared to challenge that status quo.
We encourage you to keep exploring these questions, to delve deeper into history, and to discover all those countless stories that are just waiting to be told.
And remember, the most compelling figures are often the ones who defy those easy categories, whose legacies are a mix of light and shadow, and whose stories continue to resonate across time and space.